Boy, I'll tell you what, this whole thing's been going really fast and relatively smooth. Here we are at phase 6, where we're going to tie everything together so that we have our HUD in place. So Logan, let's go ahead and get this one started. First, we're going to create our title screen.
Alright, let's jump back into the main game code and jump back up to our variable section. Now here I want to jump in a line below the game items, and let's make a HUD item for the title screen. So this will be a HUD item called title screen. Alright,
Okay.
now we need to look at creating our title screen. So we'll jump down to initialize and jump down a line after the projectile stuff. So this is our title screen is equal to a new HUD item. Now if you remember back to Canon 2, this is the part where we have to go in and set the position and the dimensions of our title screen so it's set up on screen properly. Now all of this stuff is exactly like it is in Canon 2, so I'm again going to jump over to Canon 2, into our main games code, jump up to our engine methods where we have our initialize, and here we have all of the positioning and dimensions for the title screen. So we'll grab title screen at position, width, and height, copy those lines, and inside of Canon 3 paste those right below where the title screen was created.
Beautiful.
And I can build just to verify that we're not bringing any errors over, and we're fine.
Okay, so the next thing we want to do is go ahead and jump into the load graphics content method and get the texture loaded.
Okay, and since this is going to be the same for pretty much all of our items, I'm going to copy the line for the projectile, paste that in, and then just change the name to title screen. Now the actual graphic asset that we want is title screen as seen over here. The asset name is title screen, which goes in place of projectile, and we should have our title screen loading.
Very nice. Okay, the next thing we need to do is go ahead and set up draw to check if isGame is running, to draw the title screen if it's needed.
Right, because this introduces a case where right now it always draws the same things, the game items. Now we need to do a check, because if the game is running, game items are fine. If the game is not running, then we need the title screen. So I'll begin the check on if isGame running.
Notice where he's doing this at. It's after the sprite batch.begin.
Right, we don't want to accidentally get into a case where, in the case of the title screen, we don't begin, because that will quickly introduce an error when we attempt to draw stuff.
That's right.
So right after the sprite batch.begin, we do our check on if isGame running, and if it is running, then we want to begin a block, jump down to right after projectile.draw, before sprite batch.end, and end that block, jump down a line and begin our else. So if the game is not running, then draw the title screen. So we take our title screen, we tell it to draw, and feed it, excuse me, the sprite batch. Alright?
Okay.
So that should have title screen drawing already, and I believe if we build and run, there we go.
Very nice.
We have a title screen. If we click, the game begins, and we stop drawing the title screen. That's the nice thing here now is that, let me let the game end and show that, yes, it does come back. But here's the nice thing about having the draw system set up this way, and that is we don't have to ever worry about hiding the title screen. We can just simply not draw it in the case of a running game.
Exactly. If you recall, back over in Canon 2, we had to hide and show it to make it work properly.
Right.
All right, very good. So now we can go ahead and turn our attentions to the lives display. So let's go ahead and create our lives display.
All right, all the way back up to variables. I will, for brevity's sake, copy this HUD item line, paste it in, and change this one to lives display. Alright, we've got our HUD item lives display. Now we need to move to initialize, where we need to create it. So lives display equals new HUD item.
Okay, and once again we need to set position, width, and height, so we can go borrow that, I'm sure.
Alright, let me jump to Canon 2, and here we go with the usage of the constants lives display offset and width, tile width. And let's paste those in right below lives display. Now again, we copied all of these when we copied the variables initially, so we still have lives tile width and lives display offset, as well as starting lives itself.
And you can of course build just to prove that you haven't introduced any problems.
And everything still builds just fine.
Alright, very good. So the next thing we need to do is load graphics content.
Alright, load graphics content. Again, same idea, so we'll copy the title screen line, paste that below, and change this to lives display. And the graphic we want is simply, as we can see here, lives.
Okay.
Alright. Now we need to worry about drawing. So we'll jump down to the draw section. We want to draw this if the game is running, so we'll jump in right after we draw the projectile and call upon our lives display and tell it to draw. Again, feeding it the sprite batch.
Okay.
Alright, that has, I believe, all of the engine-related stuff to HUD items.
Okay.
So let me do a build and run just to show that we should have all of them visible now. So here's our title screen, there's our lives display, but
they're
we're
not
up.
changing. Yeah.
So we need to go in. If you remember back to a few lessons ago, we had moved the update lives display method over, but we had commented out the line because we didn't have lives display yet. Well, now we do. So if we run with lives display or update lives display in action,
Ooh,
and now we have lives
yeah.
updating,
Blam.
and everything is working properly now.
Beautiful. Oh, that's it. That is Canon 3, an XNA Windows game version, running. Fantastic stuff. Good job, Logan. Well, that's pretty much going to wrap up the whole Canon experience. We have met the requirements that we set out with Canon for Canon 1, Canon 2, Canon 3, starting out with a very basic Windows application, all event-driven. We then moved over to, it's still a WinForm application, still event-driven, but we simulated a basic engine. Okay, we still had timers in there, but we were taking care of, polling ourselves, things like that, pulling the mouse button, pulling the mouse position, etc. And then finally, we moved on over to Canon 3, and since we had created Canon 2 in such a way that it was, well, almost dead on with XNA, we were able to fly through the coding of Canon 3 by borrowing a good bit of Canon 2. So that really wraps up Canon 3. Again, the idea of this section is not to get you up to speed and running with XNA. It's more of, let's just give you a taste of XNA. Let's get your hands dirty. Again, we're still working with a very basic Hello World type application. In Volume 2, that's where things are going to start getting a little bit more serious in the world of XNA. Now what we'll do is a special treat. We'll bring Zach in to use Photoshop and create some textures for you so that we can replace these little temp holders, if you will. So with that, that is going to wrap up this video. Thanks a lot.